Never get cocky. There are plenty of people who can replace you. After breaking my front teeth, my mother-in-law said that and left somewhere. I felt like my life was in danger. I evacuated to my parents' home. The next morning, my mother-in-law, who had lost 4 front teeth, appeared at the doorstep. If she doesn't take me home, she's on the brink of divorce. Or so it seems. I couldn't care less, but I determined that living with in-laws was impossible. So I decided to return only for discussion. My name is Rola, 32 years old. My husband, Mike, is 30 years old and 2 years younger. We met through a mutual friend. He was my first younger boyfriend, and he is adorable. My friend said he was a perfect fit for me because I'm good at taking care of younger people. Before marriage, his parents treated me like a real daughter. We delighted to have a daughter like me because we didn't have one. They said like this: he wanted us to live with his parents after we get married. He said he wanted me to become a homemaker. Although I had always valued my job, so I couldn't become a homemaker. After several discussions, we compromised and decided that I would switch to a job that can be done from home. I thought if my mother-in-law is a kind mother-in-law, I could manage the remote work, but that was too naive. We successfully registered our marriage, and we are officially married. We started living with my in-laws in their house. On the first day of living together, my mother-in-law's attitude changed drastically. She became very cold in her words towards me. "Izumi, I've never thought of you as my daughter." What? Before we got married, she said she would be delighted to have a daughter like me. I felt betrayed by such a sudden change in her attitude. I shouldn't have put my hopes high. Despite telling her about my remote work, "Can you do all the housework? BQs, you're at home all day long, right?" She told me that. I had hoped for a shared workload, but it was disappointing too. I became anxious about how I could handle this situation. Clearly, just shifting all the housework to me didn't satisfy my mother-in-law's heart. She started complaining and making sarcastic remarks about my housekeeping skills. I noticed some dust in the corner of the room. "Did you clean a square room in a round way or something? I asked you to tidy up the storeroom, but it doesn't seem like you've made any progress. Being busy at work isn't an excuse, you know." Why are both Dad's and Tsubasa's shirts so wrinkled? Both of them will be embarrassed at work. Iron them again, and quickly. She just goes on and on with complaints and sarcastic remarks. It was frustrating, especially when I was still learning how to iron clothes properly. Being criticized for anything other than ironing honestly just annoys me. I wanted to tell my mother-in-law to show me her idea of perfect housework, but I couldn't bring myself to say it. Reluctantly, I spent my days doing household chores as told. However, I met my limit. This happened when I was working after finishing my household chores. Even though I had clearly told my mother-in-law that I was working, she suddenly entered my room. Bang! The door of my workspace opened with loud sound. "Rola, what's for lunch today? Why would you make something this terrible? Do you want me to starve to death?" I was taken aback. "Why are you staying silent? Can't you see this is terrible? Either remake something I can actually eat, or give me money. I'm going out to eat." Today's lunch was curry. A regular store-bought curry using ordinary curry roux shouldn't become so terrible. It's not often that things turn out that bad. However, my mother-in-law insists it's awful. I'm too busy with work and don't have time to make it again. So reluctantly, I took out my wallet to pay her, and she casually said, "Oh, if there's this much, it should be fine, right?" And took a 10,000 yen bill and left, saying, "Now I can go enjoy something delicious. It'll be a good palate cleanser after that terrible curry," with a gleeful expression. I'm starting to think that my mother-in-law's complaint about the curry being awful was just a convenient lie, and she simply wanted money. Moreover, taking 10,000 yen like that was outrageous. Later, when I finally had some time, I tried the curry she called bad, and it was just a regular curry and not bad at all. I was really frustrated with my mother-in-law's selfishness. I've talked about this with my husband before. "Hey, Tsubasa, I want to talk about your mom. Could you please ask her to help with some housework, even if it's just a little? If she doesn't want to do housework, then at least I hope she stops complaining to me. It's hard to focus on work when she keeps nagging during the day." My husband seemed surprised and said, "Wait, Mom is pushing housework onto you and complaining too? No way. She always tells me that you handle household chores responsibly." It seemed like my mother-in-law was one step ahead in handling situations like this. She's really good at preempting things, making her such an unpleasant mother-in-law, as I once again thought. Once again, I couldn't help but think how unpleasant my mother-in-law truly is. Then the incident happened. It was a day with a work deadline, and I spent the entire day working in my room. I had informed my mother-in-law the day before that I'd be doing housework in the evening. While she was watching TV, she said, "I understand." However, she came in the evening. I finally finished my work and came out of the room, as if waiting for the perfect moment. She was standing outside, arms crossed in front of her. "Do you have something to say?" I asked, to which she replied, "Something to say?" My mother-in-law's getting angrier. "What do you mean it's work? Don't you realize that?" I tell her that I was just doing the work as I informed her yesterday. Even that response seemed to offend her, and she gets even more furious. Daughters-in-law should listen to their mother-in-law without any objections. That's their job, isn't it? Sitting in the room messing around with a computer is not work. It's just playing around. Such behavior should not be tolerated. Get to the household chores right away. I really was just doing my work. I'm also feeling anger welling up inside me. Mom, I must tell you that it's your son who relies on me working. Yet, you accuse me of just playing around. Please take back your words. Then suddenly, my mother-in-law grabbed my head. He dragged me all the way to the stairs, and then he forcefully slammed my face into the sharp edge of a step. Without a word, my mother-in-law struck me. "It hurts. Please stop." She held both my hands behind my back with one hand, making it impossible for me to resist effectively. For several minutes, she continued to bash my face against the corner of the stairs. When she finally let go, my face was covered in blood, felt something rolling around in my mouth, and when I spat it out, it was a piece of my tooth. My front tooth had been broken. "Never get cocky," she sneered. "There are plenty who can replace you." With that, she walked away. I realized that my life might be in danger. With my face still covered in blood, I grabbed my wallet, phone, and car keys and left the house. I headed straight for my parents' home. When I arrived covered in blood, my parents welcomed me with shock and concern. Instead of immediately asking what had happened, they prioritized treating my injuries and disinfected my wounds. The facial injuries weren't as severe as I'd thought, and much of the blood was from a nosebleed. However, looking in the mirror, I could see that 2 of my front teeth were missing. Damn her, I cursed my mother-in-law internally. Finally, my parents asked for an explanation. "What happened to you? Has something like this been going on for a while?" I told them everything. How my mother-in-law changed after I moved in. I told my parents that her inability to understand my work-from-home job, the relentless household chores she imposed on me, her endless complaints and snide remarks about my housekeeping, and my husband's refusal to believe me. I shared everything, and I told them about Tode's incident. If she had just tried to understand my work situation, none of this would have happened. Her lack of comprehension and use of violence were just too much. I reached boiling points. My parents listened quietly. When I finished, they hugged me. "You've been so strong to endure all this. You don't have to try anymore," my mother said. My father added, "Maybe it's time to leave that house and end things with him." Huh? Had my parents already decided I was getting a divorce? That wasn't what I had in mind. I thought, hold on, I can't stand my mother-in-law anymore, but I don't want to separate from Mike. Both my parents exclaimed in unison. "If you can't stand your mother-in-law, maybe you have no choice but to separate from Mike too," my father suggested. "Why not just stop living with her? Move out," I responded. "That's true," my mother mused, seeming surprised she hadn't considered it. From the beginning, that had been my intent. My main desire was to end my living with my mother-in-law. Though I had run away today, I felt I had to confront the situation soon. The next morning, the doorbell rang. Who could it be this early? When I answered the intercom, my mother-in-law was standing there. "Mom," hearing my voice, my parents came out. My father spoke first. "What do you want with our daughter? She's injured, missing 2 of her front teeth." Suddenly, my mother-in-law knelt down, bowing deeply in apology. "I'm so sorry," but her pronunciation seemed off, as if air was escaping while she spoke. Her speech sounded even more airy than mine, despite my missing teeth. What's with that way of speaking? Raising her head, my mother-in-law showed us her open mouth. It was our turn to be shocked. That was because my mother-in-law had 4 front teeth broken. "Mom, those teeth." Amid the audible sound of air escaping as she spoke, my mother-in-law tried to explain. However, having her kneel down and apologize in front of our house for an extended time wasn't appropriate for the neighbors to witness. Thus, my parents and I beckoned her inside. "So, Mom, what happened to your teeth?" I offered her some tea, but she didn't touch it. Instead, she began her story. "Yesterday, I told my husband and son about injuring you, Rola. They were furious. They said I should feel the same pain you felt, and they struck me in the face, just as I had done to you. And you lost 4 teeth from that." The strength of a man was stronger than I imagined. When I realized, my 4 front teeth were gone. After that, they lectured me and said there's no one to replace Izumi. But there are plenty to replace you who is living so idly. That's why I came to apologize. I felt a bit pleased. My husband and father-in-law had been angry on my behalf. Furthermore, I was delighted to hear that they believed no one could replace me. However, my mother-in-law continued, I was told to think that without Izumi, you won't be able to continue living like before. So please, Izumi, let's go back together. I wondered if she really thought a mere apology would suffice. My parents seemed to feel the same. With all due respect, do you really think we'll let Rolla return with such a light apology? And to be honest, it seems Izumi doesn't want to live with you anymore. Double what about my future then? That's for you to figure out. My father replied coldly. My mother-in-law looked devastated. I wasn't compassionate enough to feel sorry for her. Yet she persisted. If I don't bring Izumi back, I'll be abandoned. Aren't you heartbroken, feeling sorry for her being on the verge of divorce? But if I forgave her now, wouldn't this cycle just continue? I thought like that. I pondered this when my mother gently patted my shoulder. Just do as you want, Rolla, my mother said. So I did. Mother-in-law, I don't want to return to that house. You don't care about my future. I'm not saying that. Let me return once to talk to everyone. I don't know the outcome. So you'll come back once? Yes, just once. Seemingly overjoyed, my mother-in-law and I drove separately back to her house. Seemingly overjoyed, my mother-in-law and I drove separately back to her house. My mother-in-law and I head to her family's home in our own cars. I didn't want to share a ride. When we arrived, my husband and father-in-law greeted us. Welcome back, Rolla. My husband looked worried. My father-in-law thanked me for returning, but I clarified I was there to talk. I cannot condone mother-in-law's actions. I came here to discuss ending our living arrangement. If that can't be done, I'm prepared for divorce. Then, my husband panicked. Just wait. Rolla, I would never divorce you. I understand you can't forgive my mother, and I was about to suggest ending our shared living too. I also think that's best. I regret tying you both down to this house. The one apologizing was my father-in-law. He seemed willing to allow us to live separately. At this point, it was my mother-in-law who panicked. Father, didn't you say that if I brought Izumi home, our lives would return to the way they were? Then, who's going to handle the household chores if Izumi leaves? Isn't it obvious? It should be you. Didn't you claim that you were taking care of the housework to prioritize Izumi's work? Or was that a lie? My mother-in-law's face twisted as if she had bitten into something bitter. It seemed she had given a different story to her husband. She couldn't admit that she'd been pawning off responsibilities onto me while gallivanting around. I then decided to reveal another truth. Mom, where do you think the money for your outings came from? Is that your money? No, he ran through that pretty quickly. The money that filled the gap was mine. With the money I earned, you went out and enjoyed yourself. Without our cohabitation, that financial cushion will disappear. Just a heads up. At this, my mother-in-law's knees buckled, and she slumped to the ground. After that, my in-laws are somehow managing without getting a divorce. My mother-in-law, having to handle all the housework, no longer has the freedom she once had. She's living within her means, without the financial support I used to provide, which is probably a good thing. However, she's on the verge of a breakdown due to her never-ending chores. Almost every day, she asks my husband, Tom, if we share the household chores, can't we consider living together again? But he has decisively declined her requests. By the way, when we decided to end the cohabitation, my father-in-law asked if there was any way he could make it up to me. I told him, I'll be sending you the bill for my dental treatment. My mother-in-law seems unaware of this for now, but soon she'll be billed for the cost of my dental repair. Without any savings, she'll likely have to work. Her stressful days seem far from over. On the other hand, we started living together. We've embarked on our new journey as a couple, and it's been delightful. We're hoping to start a family soon, and now seems like the perfect opportunity. Because I don't have any stress right now, I hope to show our child to the supportive father-in-law and my parents soon.